What's your name?
Matthew Paris.
What are you doing here? What's your purpose?
My purpose is I'm going to talk about the short films, Crisis, Last Catch, My Mother's Eyes, and The Eyes on Me. And I'm going to talk about the writing process, and I'm going to talk about the development and how we got distributed and all that fun stuff. It's going to be great.
So you think you're somebody, huh?
I think so. I think we're all somebody, right? So Crisis was a movie I had written. I wrote the script back in 2010, and I had just moved to Austin in October 2008. And when I got here, I got involved in independent films, short films, and whatnot, just kind of having a good time. I ended up working behind the scenes for a movie called Distances, which was a feature independent film for Brandon Marshall. And I had a good time doing that, and after that I started to do a short film for Marion Yeager and My Productions, and that was called The Good Samaritan, and I worked behind the scenes on that. That was a fun time. But how I came up with Crisis was I was laying down on the couch at home watching television, channel surfing, whatnot, and I was kind of coming up with the idea of what to write next. And I thought, well, why not have a guy who's struggling at home? He's a single guy, he's in his 30s, and doesn't know, he wants to have a job but doesn't know how to get a job or the process. He has no connections. And that's how it kind of started. And basically, there was a lot of things going on that I was seeing on television and books and stuff like that, and articles that these college kids were coming out of college but they couldn't find a job, and they were kind of depressed about it. And I was reading articles about this, and unless a lot of them too would go on and work for their parents or work for their dad if they own the company, but there are some kids that just don't have that luxury, so they would be struggling to find a job. So that's where it started. So I wrote a few pages of that, and then it became something more of, what if this guy was suicidal? Because the suicide rate is very high. And but I had to find a way to, why was he so suicidal? What was the problem there? So I remember writing a few pages of that and writing scenes of him and his parents. This is the first draft of the script. Him and his parents kind of saying, look, you need to find a job. We can't support you. You're living off us. Why don't you act like a man? Go find a job. And he would say, well, I'm trying. That was the original opening scene of the movie, where he would go downstairs for breakfast. He was living at home. He was probably in his early 30s. And that's how it started. So basically, you have a guy who's everybody in the world, including his friends and his parents, are telling him, you got to stop being lazy, which really he's not being lazy. He's really trying to find a job, but he doesn't know, nobody will take him on. So I needed another angle to it where he needs to talk to somebody, because I think we all need to talk to somebody, especially nowadays. We all need someone in our corner. So I remember working, at the time I was working for Round Rock Express Baseball, and I remember coming home from the ballpark, and I was driving back to Houston. Excuse me. I was driving back to Houston, and this was like around midnight. I left the ballpark because I think we had a game or some sort of special event. And I remember driving home on 71, total darkness of this highway, and just driving home, and I was listening to the radio, and I was listening to Delilah. Now, if you don't know Delilah, she's kind of like the Dr. Phil of radio. She has people call in, people ask her about the problems. Do you have any advice for me? And I kind of thought, okay, that's what happens. He calls into his favorite radio station for help. So he ends up talking to this woman on the radio and says, look, I trying to find a job. I don't know what to do. I just need somebody to talk to. And basically, he just needs someone to understand him. So at that time, I had written the scenes of the parents. I had written a scene at the diner where he's talking to his buddies, old high school buddies, and they're all doing very successful, and he's not. And they're kind of giving him crap about it, not knowing that the guy is suicidal. And then kind of went from there. And then I brought in the angle of the radio station. He calls into the radio station. So I wrote the first draft, I think in 2010, and it was just kind of sitting there. I had finished a short film. Now what happened was I was in talks to do a movie in New Orleans, a horror movie in New Orleans, that ended up falling through, like a lot of projects do. And basically, I had hooked up with this producer, Carlos from Look Now Productions. And after that movie fell through, he kind of asked me, he goes, do you have anything for me? And I said, yeah, I have this script called Crisis. And it's just kind of sitting there. Do you want to read it? He said, yeah, send it over. So I sent him the script. I sent him the first draft of the script. And he read it, and within a day, I'll never forget this. He texted me back the next day. It said, and there was one word. He said, "Wow," and then he was like, "We have to meet. We have to meet now. I love the script. Let's talk about this." So I go and meet him for lunch, and he basically said, "Okay, when do you want to shoot?" Which never happens. Usually this whole thing is a process. You go through pre-production, you go through production, you go through post-production. So he was just basically like, yeah, what days do you want to shoot? And I thought, okay. Because I thought, driving to the restaurant, I thought he was going to be like, all right, here are my notes, which came later because I had to do a second and third draft. But he said, when do you want to shoot? And later on, once we started the development process, he gave me some notes. He wanted to set it on Halloween night, which I thought was fine. And we made it a little bit more of a thriller, where the first draft was a little bit more of a talkie movie with a guy who just needed help. We made him a little bit more of a thriller. We made him a little bit more of a almost crazy, kind of a crazy guy, and who kind of stalks the radio station a little bit, kind of stalks the woman at the radio station. So yeah, I mean that's how one script goes from one place and ends up to a whole nother place. So I did a couple more drafts. We were casting the movie. We had looked at a few actors for the role. The main role of Michael, the guy's name was Michael in Crisis. And a lot of these guys, and this usually happens with young actors, where these guys come in and they want to know the psychology of the character. Did his parents abuse him or whatnot? If you're playing a guy who tends to be a little bit out there and a little bit crazy. And so all those guys, I would talk to these guys, and those guys just didn't fit the bill. And I got an email from this actor named Ken Stahl, who said, I really want to play this role. I want to play the role of Michael in your movie. And he was going through saying, I have a college degree, and I'm working this job, and I don't like it very much. It's not very good pay, and so I know how this guy feels. And I said, great. And I remember going to Carlos, the producer, thinking, okay, this is the guy. This guy truly gets it. He's not talking about the psychology of another person and why is this, what makes this guy tick. He's just a guy who, felt like he's in trouble and he wants more in life and he doesn't know how to get it, which is what the character I wrote in Crisis was like. So we casted Ken. He did an audition. I think he sent it on tape. I saw it. The producer saw it. And it was great. So we casted him. And then we rounded out the cast for his friends. Shane Christopher, certainly David DeLisle, who's actually one of my favorite actors. He's one of the best actors I've ever worked with. He's a really, really good actor, and he's gone on to do some great things. I think he was in The Purge, the television show The Purge. And I think he was in Better Call Saul. And Laura Ritz was another one. So they were all great. And so we shot the movie. We shot in and around Austin. We shot at a coffee shop in East Austin. That was a lot of fun. The owner was great. We did have about, I think, 4 days of shooting. I have to search my files again because we shot in 2011. So I think we had 4 days of shooting. I briefly show up in it. We shot at this music studio down in South Austin. I briefly show up in it. That's a funny story because when we hired the director, Gray Ellis, he had a few notes, and he basically, the great guy, he's a really good editor too, and he basically brought his own thing to it. And I remember in the writing process, they were like, I was in a meeting and they were like, Matt, we're going to put you in there. And at first I was like, no, I don't want to be in the movie. It's fine. He said, no, we'll put you in there. So I actually play a successful business guy who comes out of the office, and the guy is making fun of me. The main character is making fun of me. So yeah, it was fun. I didn't have any lines. I basically walked from point A to point B, but it was great. I'm walking back to my car in the parking lot scene, but it was great. And so we shot the movie. We had one moment where we were shooting at a studio, and we were shooting so late the guy wanted to go home, and we were in the parking lot. And we were like, yeah, we have a few more shots here, man. We can't go home. So I honestly think the guy was a young guy, so I honestly think he wanted to shut it down early and go out and party, but that's just me. So we had a few more shots, and we were going to shoot the ending, and we had to shoot the ending there. The problem was I kept on delaying it, telling him, just give me 10, 15 more minutes, then we'll be out here. Now, that 10, 15 minutes went to 20 minutes, and then went to 25 minutes, and I could tell the guy was getting angry. So he basically kicked us out of the studio parking lot, and because he had to close the gate. And we've pretty much filmed it what you call guerrilla style, which means you film at a location with no permits, or you don't have really any permission to be there. But we had to do it because we had to finish the movie. We were on a tight deadline. So we had gone to this parking lot at this middle school, and there was nobody around, and this was like in the dead of night. We had like a bunch of crew members out there, the actors are out there, and we had Ken out there, we had Sky Dabney out there. So basically how we cheated it was we just kept all the shots tight on their face, from the chest to the head, and then we did close-ups, just extreme close-ups. That's how we did it. We actually there was one truck that was parked there, and the windows were dark and tinted, and we were kind of like, what's going on here? So one of the crew members walked up to the truck, and then the truck started and backed up and left. So I'm still trying to figure out what was going on there. I don't know what was going on there, so I'll just leave it at that. So, but anyways, we finished the movie, and everything was great. I remember I said, look, if a police officer comes by or anything like that, we're all film students. The producer is the film professor, and this is student film. That was my story in case a police officer was going to come by. But luckily, no one came by. So we shot the movie, and then we were in the editing process. Now, the editing process usually takes a little while because you got to do a first cut of the movie. This is with no music. You probably add temp music to it. And because we had to hire a composer to do the theme for Crisis and do the music for the movie. So anyways, we're doing the editing process. We had a first cut. We had talked about doing a focus group screen at one of the theaters, but I don't think we ever did. So we all felt like we had something good. And then we did a couple more cuts. And then we had the premiere at this place called Juju's Photo Gallery in East Austin, which is kind of a cool place. It was pretty awesome. We had a bunch of people show up. It was a packed house. That was kind of cool. One of my bosses from I-9 Sports showed up because I told him about it. At the time, I was coaching for I-9 Sports. And we got a big reaction from the crowd. After that came the process of marketing and distribution. Gray Ellis, I think, had designed the poster, which is Ken's face with the gun on it. And so we distributed the poster, we distributed it online. And then as far as film festivals go, it was, I usually take a little bit of a different approach as opposed to other producers. The producers came to me and said, well, let's take it to the Cannes Film Festival or Sundance. I don't usually like to do that because if you think about it, every filmmaker in film school and in the world wants to go to Cannes and Sundance because those are the two biggest film festivals in the world. So I usually go against that. I'm like, well, why not? I told the producers, why not go to smaller film festivals where maybe we could get an award, maybe we could build a crowd, a fan base there, and let's do that. So luckily they went with me during that time. Now, there are a few ways to market a movie if you're doing an independent film and keeping the budget low and you don't have studio backing or distribution yet. And it's different in every way. Now, there's marketing, online marketing for movies called Without a Box, which a lot of people used at that time. Which we didn't use it for that because I didn't want to use it for that because I had a strategy myself from marketing for I9 Sports and other sports organizations. So we basically I went to this thing called Film Freeway, which I thought was a lot easier marketing strategy. A lot of filmmakers go to it to market their movies to festivals. So that's what I did. You put the movie up there with a password protected because you don't want to get it out there, and then you put the trailer up there, which is what we did. I basically wrote out a marketing plan saying, here's who's in it, here's who wrote it, which is me, here's who produced it, here's who directed it. So basically you set out to film festivals, and then we got to WorldFest Houston. We won like the Platinum Remy at WorldFest Houston. We got to a few other festivals. We won, I think, the Rising Star Award in Canada, Canadian International Film Festival. And then I think, I'm sorry, that was the Royal Reel Award. We won the Rising Star Award, I think, for The Last Catch, which I'll get to. But we started winning these awards, and then I thought to myself, okay, now we could try to go to distribution companies to sell the movie. Sometimes when a filmmaker finishes a movie, no matter if it's a short or a feature, they just want to go straight to distribution companies. And I was telling everybody, because they're overexcited, they had just made this thing and they want to try to get it out there. So sometimes they put the cart before the horse for whatever reason. And I said, no, let's take it to let's build our audiences for film festivals first. So after we got about 2 awards, I knew we were in the driver's seat. And basically I said, okay, that's when we'll go to distribution companies. So basically I sent it, I think, to 2 distribution companies. I know I sent it to one in Germany, and they basically got back to me and said, thanks, Matt, but it's not for us right now, and we're marketing these type of movies. And I said, that's fine, that's cool. And then I sent it off to Shorts International. I sent them the movie, I sent them the trailer. At that time, the trailer was just released on YouTube. So I had shared that on social media pages, and now was kind of building word and saying, okay, what is this, and stuff like that. So so after the festivals, after Film Freeway, I sent it to a few distribution companies. It was pretty much a no, which it didn't bother me because there's so many distribution outlets now for short films, no matter if it's airlines, no matter if it's streaming services, no matter if it's Amazon, no matter if it's Hulu. And there's a bunch, and that's another thing too that independent producers have to realize. Sometimes they're like, well, I want to get my movie to a movie theater, or I want to get my movie on Netflix. You don't really need to. It's a win if you get your movie just out there somehow, and even if you get paid for streaming services, that's a win. It's not out there with the in the movie theaters playing next to Transformers, but it's a win. And I explain to people all the time, you don't need a grand slam out of the gate. You could always have a few base hits. And I think that's what we did with this movie. So basically, I sent the movie off to Shorts International. I got them the poster, I got them the trailer, and I got them the movie. And a few other things too, like the cast and who wrote it, who produced it, who directed it. So after about 2 months, I didn't hear anything. And I just kind of thought, okay, well, that one goes away. Let's just keep moving forward here because something's, bound to hit. And right when I said that, I think the very next day or in the next 2 days, I got a email from this woman who's one of the executives over at Shorts International in Los Angeles, from Jenny. Her name is Jenny Hayden. And I remember in the email she said, I saw your movie last night. I love the movie. I would like to buy it. And I was like, okay, great. So she sent us the contract. I looked over the contract. I had my lawyers look over the contract. The producers looked over the contract. And everything looked good. So we signed the rights away to them. They said, here's what we want to do with the movie. We want to put it on television. We want to put it on DirecTV and AT&T Uverse. And it was a great relationship. Jenny's a wonderful woman. And I loved talking to her. I have never met her in person. I never went out to LA and met her in person, but I talked to her a bunch on the phone and over emails and stuff, so it's always fun. And so their strategy was, we're going to put it on television, DirecTV and AT&T Uverse. And I said, that's great. And they said, we're going to have it play over 3 continents, including the United States. So it's going to be Europe, Middle East, Africa, and the United States. We thought that's great. So after about, I say, because they needed the music rights too. So we had to get our composer to sign off on the music rights for the film. And the whole thing just became a big process that took maybe another 2 months. So once we signed the deal and everything looked good, and we got paid our little money, which is always nice. We sent the film to them in a drop link, and we asked them. They said, well, when is the movie going to premiere? And they said, well, it's going to premiere on this day. So it was great. The funny thing is they had like a midnight premiere for the movie because it was a thriller. And they sent it to the rating company, the ratings board, and they gave it I think it was like 17 plus, which is basically rated R because it is a dark movie for short films. So, excuse me. So, so we sent the film. They premiered it on, I don't remember the dates, but they premiered it at like midnight. And then I think they had another showing of it like at 3 a.m. And I was thinking, everybody's going to be asleep here, so like nobody's going to see it. But but it played pretty well. Played a lot at night, 7 o'clock, the 8 o'clock crowd, because usually after about 6, they explained this to us. Jenny explained this to us. They said after about 6, 7 o'clock and later on in the night, you'll get the older audience that like horror movies, that are horror fans. So that was their strategy. We're going to play it like at 10 o'clock at night. And that's what they did. I think they barely played it throughout the day, but a few times throughout the day, like around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, but a lot of times it was at night. And it was great. So we did that. We were all having a good time, and that's the story of Crisis. It was a good movie. So how The Last Catch happened was I had that story in my mind for about a year before I put it down on paper. And after the success of Crisis and we sold the movie and everything was great with that, I remember I sat at the home of the producer. We were in the back porch having cigars, and he was like, do you have anything else that I could possibly produce? And I said, yeah, I kind of have this thing, but I haven't put it down on paper yet, and it's very different than Crisis. It's about sports. It's kind of an inspirational movie. And he was like, yeah, well, you don't have anything on paper? I said, yeah, but I basically told him the story. It's a father-son story. The dad has cancer. The father leaves his small Texas town, goes plays college baseball, but comes back because his dad has cancer, and he has to, talk to the father because they never got along, and he pushed him real hard to play baseball. And he said, that sounds great. He goes, when do you think you'll have a first draft of script? I said, give me about 2 weeks. So I went off and I wrote, it took me about, I think, 4 days to write about, I think, 18 pages of that movie. So I think this was like 2012, 2013. So I always wanted to do a sports film. I mean, obviously I'm a coach. When you're a coach, you deal with a lot of personality types. You deal with, fathers who push their kids real hard to play a sport, or more fathers who want their kids to have fun, but you'll see some of those hardcore dads. So I thought, okay, what if I kind of write about that a little bit? So I basically went off, and the movie was also very inspired by Field of Dreams, which is one of my favorite sports movies, which is about a father and son type story on the baseball diamond in Iowa. So I went off, did the first draft, and he said, okay, this is great, this is awesome. We were looking for a director to do it. I originally wasn't going to direct the movie. So as the script went around, I had done a few more rewrites. We had talked to a few directors. We had talked to a few actors, and a lot of them like it, but they couldn't do it because they were doing another movie and their schedules were not open. So this movie, other than Crisis, I mean, it took a long time to develop because I was doing drafts and we had to get actors who could fit the roles. So basically, we hired a director, and I remember he said, well, I want to do this and this, and then all of a sudden the guy just it didn't work out because I think he wanted to do a rewrite and make it more this way, and we were like, no. So I remember being at I think it was Austin Web Fest, and I remember being at a party up there at the Omni Hotel in downtown Austin, and one of the actresses we hired, Joy, just said, Matt, why don't you direct it? Just have you direct it. And then the producer, Carlos, was there and said, yeah, why don't you do it? And at first, I never thought about directing. I didn't want to direct. You know, I had acted in a few things, and I had worked as an AD or writing or producing a little bit, but I never thought about directing. And I thought to myself, okay, this will be an interesting challenge. I'll do it. So once they got me as director, we began casting the movie. Now, we had already casted Joy as the mother, and Joy Lee, and she's a great actress. I mean, she was awesome. She was great to work with. We had scouted locations. We had looked at a few places. We had looked at the Sci-Fair area, I think, in Houston, and then we looked at a bunch of houses around Austin. We needed much more of a rural kind of country setting, because we had to have a small town feel from the script. So Carlos, the producer, had said, well, I have this friend who has a house in the country, why don't we just go look at that? And her name was Jacqueline. She's a very sweet lady, wonderful lady, and still talk to her every once in a while. And so we went out to the house, and it really fit what we needed from, you know, what was in the script, you know, moving around the house, because most of the movie takes place at one location. It takes place in the house, and it takes place in the field in the back of the house. So we needed those things, and that's what this house had, was those things. Plus, it was a great house. I love the house. And it was out in San Marcos, Texas. So we had scouted that location. We had secured that location, locked it down. We made the dates on how to when to shoot the movie. And so we locked that down. So things were starting to get easier as it progressed. Yeah, we had casted this actor at first. I think his name was Ryan. I don't even remember his name now. Haven't seen the guy in years, but I think his name was Ryan. And this guy fit the mold. He was like a model / actor. He looked like an athlete. He looked like a college baseball player. So, and he was very excited to do it. So we had casted him, and we had done like a photo shoot with him. We had done like, for the movie, we had done like certain things at the location with him and Joy, who's playing his mother at the movie, in the movie. And we did all these photos with him and all these behind the scenes stuff and marketing materials to promote the movie with him. So I remember I emailed him, sending out something saying, we're going to shoot on these dates. It's going to be great. You're going to do good. Just keep studying the script. And that night, I think it was like around 10:30 at night, he said, hey, I'm so excited. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Now, at this time, he was also at college. I think he was living in Houston. He was going to University of Houston. He was going to U of H. So yeah, but he said he could do the movie, and we signed him, and everything was locked. So he told me how excited he was that night. The very next day, he gives me a call. Or no, he doesn't give me a call. He sends me an email or sends me a text. I can't remember if it was an email or text. This was back in like 2012, 2013. And he says, you know, Matt, I can't do the movie now. And I was like, what do you mean you can't do the movie now? We just did all this stuff with you. He goes, well, I'm going on vacation. We have this vacation time, and it runs right into the movie's time. And, you know, my parents and I do this every year and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, how come you didn't tell me that, you know, 2 months ago when we were hiring you and we did all this stuff, all this promotional stuff with you for the movie, you know, announcing you as the lead actor. So I honestly think he lied to me. I think somebody had persuaded him not to do the movie for whatever reason. I think it was that. So I think it was a lie. And I said, all right, man, bye. So I called the producers and told them what had happened. And the producers called him and kind of, you know, said some derogatory things to him, I'm sure. And I heard it was kind of a shouting match. I wasn't in the room. So after that, so we didn't hire him anymore. He was gone. The search was on for a new lead actor. That's when I think the same day that we talked about Ryan not coming to the movie, Carlos, the producer, had sent me a headshot of Bradley Costas. So I met with Bradley. We were, I think, a week away from shooting, and Bradley seemed like, I think he had done like a video audition, and I saw his resume and headshot, and because I had to approve everything, and yeah, it was. I said, okay, he'll work. I need to work with him, but he'll be just fine. So from the day of shooting, or I'm sorry, actually, when this led up to the day of shooting, I remember. We were rehearsing. We went out to the house. I told everybody, here's what I want to do, because I was a director also. I want these shots. I want that shot. We're going to shoot this on this day. So basically, I wanted a 4-day shoot. Basically, we were going to do everything in the house on day one. We were going to do everything in the main master kitchen and bedroom on day one. We were going to do everything in the hallway on day 2, and then day 3 and day 4 we were going to move outside. We were going to do all in the front of the house, the front yard of the house. We were going to do on day 3, and then do the ending, the catch on day 4. That was my original plan to shoot the movie. So as I was making the shot list and stuff like that, I went to the producers. The producers were like, no, we can't go out there for that long. I want 2 days. And I said, well, what do you mean? I was like, I need 4 days in order to do this right. If you really want a good movie. He said, no, I can only give you 2. And he never really explained why to me, which sometimes that happens when you're dealing with certain people. So so I got 2 days of shooting, and it was all kind of done very quickly. The opening scene is when they're driving down a long road in the countryside. It's one big master shot, and then I was kind of fought on that a little bit, and they said, well, why don't we do a shot like this? My original opening script was it was one big master, and you tracked the car, and the car was coming towards the camera, and then you cut away to them pulling into the house to the front yard. How you see it in the movie is we actually had the DP and a few other crew members, camera guy, inside the car as they were driving. And then, we had shots outside, a couple of actors inside the car, and then we cut to them coming to the camera, and then them pulling into the driveway. But it originally was just a master shot of them just driving towards the camera and pulling into the driveway, which is fine. It's always, I agree to it, because you always need you need ideas for the editing process and post-production. So I was fine with that, and it turned out well. I think it turned out well. So so after that, we had 2 days worth of shooting. So basically, you have to do everything in the house, and then you have to do everything outside within those 2 days. So what should have taken 4 days, you have to narrow down 2 days, which means you don't have a whole lot of setups that you need to do. And not only that, you're kind of cut and pressed for times on budget and hours. So this was a real learning experience as far as directing goes. I mean, it can be pretty stressful. So anyways, we did everything in the house. We had one shot where the son has to be angry at the father when he comes into the bedroom. So because the guy's dying of cancer, and then we build to, okay, I forgive you for pushing me so hard. I understand why you pushed me so hard to be really not only a great baseball player, but to really learn about life. Because in life you get knocked down, but you have to get back up, and just move forward. So there was a big speech with that, and he had to be really emotional stuff. Now, Bradley, I think, originally came from theater. I think this was one of his first movies, so we really had to work with him on it. And there were a couple of times where we did, like, I think 7 or 8 takes where he had to enter the room, and he was kind of playing it wrong. And I thought, no, do this. It's more of an angry thing instead of a sad thing, which I think he was playing very sad. And then finally he was kind of getting with the rhythm. But and I love Bradley. I think Bradley's great. I think he's a great actor. He's just, there are times where he goes really, he's very demonstrative. He's very loud. He has a lot of energy, which is good. But sometimes somebody needs to tell him to bring it back down a little bit. So, but yeah, no, it was great. He did a great job. So I remember we were setting up outside to shoot the ending, and we were doing the catch. And basically what had happened was Bradley's not really a baseball player. He's a swimmer. He had grown up swimming. So I had to really coach him on, and a lot of us had to really coach him on how to actually throw a baseball and throw it pretty well and make it seem like he was a college player. So it took a little time, but he finally started to come around. He did a great job. So we wrapped the movie. Everything was great. Jackie, the owner of the house, Jackie, was great. And we wrapped the movie. So as we were going into post-production, we had edited the movie. We had Temp Music. Ray Ellis, who directed Crisis, was also our editor on The Last Catch, and he did a great job. And I went in there. I said, okay, I want this, cut this together, and this. So I was very dead set on my ideas and stuff like that. The problem is, usually with movies, you're dealing with a lot of people, so it's almost like, okay, you go in, we want this, show of hands. It's very much like that, and it could be quite frustrating. So it's a very kind of almost like a corporate entity. So we had a first cut, which I thought was okay. It wasn't terrific, but I thought it was okay. And we had a focus group screening over at AMC Barton Creek here in Austin. And we did the screening, and after you bring people in to watch the screening, they fill out questionnaires about what they like and what they dislike about the movie. So they come out of there, and I talked to a few of them about it. They said, we like the story. We think the story is strong. Some of the actors are okay. We didn't really like this and this. So it wasn't like it was high scores, and it wasn't like it was low scores. It was very kind of middle ground. It was very mixed. And, you had some people who liked it, some people who didn't like it. And you're just kind of like, okay, well, that's fine. So I remember we had the producers wanted to see it, and we had to turn in a first cut of the movie. And I remember getting a call after they watched it, and they pretty much said they don't like the movie, which was an interesting conversation. And they were like, okay, we need to go back and shoot some things. And I remember saying, I originally told you guys I wanted a 4-day shoot, and which they didn't like too much, but we got through it. So I think we ended up shooting. We shot some exteriors on day 3. We went back and shot a little bit of the ending. We went back and reshot the catch a little bit from different angles, and it turned out fine. And then we edited the movie together. And then I think we had I don't think we had any more focus group screenings. And we were going to have a premiere for it. We were going to try to find out, but this is what little faith some of the producers had in it. We didn't have a premiere for it. And I said, okay. So basically, the same marketing strategy and the same that I took with Crisis, I went to Film Freeway, built the marketing page on Film Freeway, and we went to film festivals first. We went to World Fest Houston. We ended up winning the Silver Remy. We went to Canada. We got the Rising Star Award. We went to the Digital Animation Awards, and we got nominated for, I think, Best Short Film Drama, and we actually ended up winning. So after all that, after the post-production mess and all that, and people saying they don't really like it, they don't think it's going to work, now we're winning all these awards at film festivals, and everybody's coming up saying, hey, we love that movie, we think it's great. And it's very different than Crisis. Crisis was more of a thriller, where this was more of the tear-jerker. It was pulling on the heartstrings a little bit. So, and that's what I wanted to tell. It was very much a drama. As a matter of fact, throughout the years, I've had people come up to me and say how much they really enjoy that movie, which is great to hear. So anyways, after all the film festivals, after we were getting all the awards, we were starting to set out to distribution companies. Now, of course, Crisis was with Shorts International, and Jenny Hayden had really spearheaded Crisis. I contacted Jenny, and Jenny was like, sure, send it over, and I'll watch the movie. So I sent it over to her, not really know what she was going to say. Now, I told Jenny on the phone, I said, it's very different than Crisis. It's not a thriller. And she was like, Matt. She goes, just send it over to me and let me watch it. I said, okay. So I think that day, or no, I'm sorry, it was the next day. The next day, she goes, this is great. I think this is fine. I think this works. I said, I'll buy it from you. So we went through that whole process again. I said, okay, great. So we went through the whole process of contracts. We got paid our money. It was a flat rate. We had no residuals from it, but it was fine. And they said we're gonna play it like we played Crisis, which is over 3 continents, including the United States. So Europe, Middle East, Africa, and the United States. And it was on television. That one played a lot more throughout the day because it was much more of a family movie. And yeah, it was great. I think a lot of people were surprised by that movie. Throughout the years, I've had people come up to me and say how much they enjoy it. Yeah, it was a good movie. As far as directing goes, I have not directed a movie since then because I kind of really what it was I did not get everything I wanted on that movie, including a few shots due to budget reasons, due to time. So I've not directed since. I probably won't direct. So, but it's fine. It's cool. As a matter of fact, the Utah, I think, Film Festival, I think their critics reviewed The Last Catch and gave it like a great review. Said it was a great movie. Said, it's an emotional punch to the gut, which is great. And yeah, because it deals with father and sons and baseball, surrounding baseball. And I think everybody can relate to that in a way. Because, I grew up playing sports. All my friends grew up playing sports. That's how you built friendships. That's how you built a team. And to this day, I'm friends with a lot of my sports buddies. I still talk to them this day. So it's a really good movie, and I'm very happy with it. So yeah, it was awesome. So with the success of Crisis and The Last Catch, winning the awards and getting out there to the audience and playing on DirecTV and AT&T Uverse, of course, Looking Out Productions came to me and said, do you have anything else for us? And basically, I had just done a thriller with Crisis for them, which was kind of a dark movie. I had done The Last Catch, was the tearjerker one. So I wanted to do kind of my chick flick one. So I had come up with the idea of what if you had a guy who was not the most popular guy in school, but he really liked this girl and she was part of the popular crowd. She was the cheerleader. She dated a certain type of guy, and he was not that. He was, the science geek and whatnot. So basically I came up with the idea of a love story where you have a mother who tells a bedtime story to her child about how her and dad met. So I went off and I did a first draft of the script, and it was called My Mother's Eyes. And basically it was like I was really swinging for the fence with that movie. It was I was basically saying, okay, I want to do kind of a big budget love story. And I was probably a little bit naive at the time. And so I went off and wrote it. And I basically wrote a first draft of the script. And what had happened was you had the mother tell the story to her daughter, a bedtime story to her daughter about how her and dad met. So we flashed back to high school and prom night. And she was dating kind of the most popular guy who was also kind of a jerk. And he was kind of a loner, and they met on, they were classmates, but he had asked her to prom because she had broken up with the other guy, and she said yes. And all her friends were like, why are you dating this guy? This is not who you date. You date somebody like a Johnny who's on the football team or something. So yeah, I kind of started from there. The original setting was at the prom. And what had happened was one of the main characters, who was the bad guy, the antagonist of the story, was her ex-boyfriend, and he kind of always made fun of him and patronized him. And he kind of stands up for himself at the prom in front of everybody, and they get into a fight a little bit, and it kind of went from there. So I sent the first draft off to the producers, and they all liked it. However, they said, okay, this is too much of a budget. We can't get to a school. We can't set dress the gym and stuff like that to do it. And we can't have tuxedos and stuff like that. He didn't quite say it like that, but I knew where he was going. So basically, it was just a big budget. We couldn't do it. Now, I kind of knew that at the time. And so, like any type of rewrite on a script, you have to sometimes cave in for budget in order to film stuff and do stuff and just, manage the money a little bit. So, what had happened was I did another rewrite, and then I had done another rewrite, and basically it went from the prom to a house party to them meeting at their favorite restaurant for a location to kind of hang out. It went from being a prom date to having a first date with this guy that she doesn't usually date. The main character doesn't usually date. So. And then I went there, and then I did a couple of more drafts, and we were starting to look at actors and actresses and stuff like that. What had happened was the producers were kind of like, well, I want to do it like this. Now, these are the type of producers that like horror movies and stuff like that. They don't do lighthearted stuff. So they're like, well, we want to do it like this, and we want to do it like that. And I was getting kind of frustrated with the process. So after hiring a few actors and this and that and the other, and then they brought on another writer without telling me until after the fact to rewrite the script. And I read his draft, and it was way too much, of what I originally came up with. Of course he brought in his own thing to it, but it was just not the way to go. And I thought that. And of course I very nicely said this to the producers, and he got upset, and then of course the writer found out that I didn't like it, so of course he got upset, so everything was kind of in the crossfires a little bit. So I did a couple more drafts of the script, and I basically quit in pre-production. I remember getting a call when I was out hanging out with a buddy of mine, and one of the producers said, well, I hear you want to quit the movie now. And he was like, why? And I said, well, look, and at this time, I had sent my original draft of My Mother's Eyes to the California Film Awards for literature, and I got an award for it. So, and I explained this. I said, look, I feel like there's too many cooks in the kitchen here that want to make it this, where I'm meant to make it this way. And he understood, and he was like, okay. So they kind of still had me around for a little bit. And then we hired a director, Denise Bradley, who I absolutely love. Her boyfriend was doing the sound mixing for My Mother's Eyes, Gary Robert Delgado. Denise, I don't think had ever directed before. She had been an actress, and so she wanted to direct the movie. She asked the producers about it and stuff like that. And of course they asked me, and I thought it was okay. I said, it's fine. And so that movie was just a pain for me, and because they changed so much of the script around. Everybody did. Once Denise came on board to direct it, she did a rewrite, I think, of the script. A lot of it was, I think it was set at a house party, but then a lot of it was also set at the school too, and it was just, it was not originally what I wanted to do, the vision for what I had and the point I was trying to come across with that movie. As a matter of fact, I remember the original, I had a meeting with one of the producers, and it was kind of a heated meeting, and I said, look, it's not going to go anywhere without me. It's not going to go to television. It's not, I said, the best thing it's going to go is probably YouTube. And of course he got mad. And so Denise was hired, the crew was crewing up, they had shot a teaser trailer. I had written like a little teaser trailer for it. They did do that. They shot that, which is what I wanted. So they filmed the ad of my script for the teaser trailer, and I think it's pretty cool. I think you can find it on YouTube, My Mother's Eyes. And so they went off and did the movie. After pre-production, I really wasn't that involved, because I pretty much said, guys, I'm out here, because the script changed so much. So I did go to set for one day and just kind of looked around, and it was I was like, all right. And then I left. I remember one of the producers calling me and said, well, I heard you were down there for one day. I said, yeah, I was there. He said, well, what'd you think? And I said, it's okay. And he was like, well, what does that mean, Matt? And I'm like, well, I think everything's going too quick. I think they're not doing enough takes. They're not doing enough setups. They're not doing enough angles. And I said, that's what I think. And he was just like, okay. So they shot the movie, and I was pretty much done with it. And I think they had done post-production on it. They did send me a screener to the movie, and I watched it. So some of it, and I think Denise is great. I love Denise, but I also think, she did a good job directing it. Some of the actors in it don't usually match because Denise also played the lead of the mother, and then Alyssa was the high school when we do the flashbacks of her in high school. She's a high school girl. So, and Alyssa did a great job because Alyssa's a great actress and model and whatnot. So, yeah, it was one of those things where some of the stuff didn't really match, and some of it when I was watching it didn't really make sense, which is where I knew it was going, and yeah, I heard the movie was on YouTube, and yeah, after I saw that movie, I just kind of said, well, it is what it is, and here's what I think. It's funny enough, when I was doing stuff around Rock Express Baseball, Denise and Gary, her boyfriend, had gone out to a baseball game a couple times. I ran into her. And she pulled me aside for a second. She said, Matt, what did you really think about the movie? And I said, look, you did a good job. I just think there's I would have done it differently. And that's all I said to her. I said, I would have done more setups. I would have done more takes. I would have done this a little bit more differently. I would have moved the camera a little bit more. Just stuff like that. And she understood. She was cool. And, we're still friends to this day. And it's just another way to look at it. But yeah, that was kind of the movie that I lost a little bit, and I think you can find the movie on YouTube, actually, My Mother's Eyes. So, and I think they only gave me story by credit, which is fine. So, but that movie really didn't go anywhere as far as distribution or whatnot. I think it just kind of went to YouTube, and I quit, pre-production, and then I had done a couple more drafts, and then I really wasn't involved in the filmmaking of it, so I kind of look at that one as the one that got away from me. But, these things happen. Writers come on board, especially in Hollywood. It's standard practice if you write a script on spec, and now if you don't know what spec is, it's writing a script on speculation, meaning that nobody hired you to write it, you just sat down and came up with the story yourself. And then you give it to a production company that might like it, and they usually say, well, we like it, we'll pay you this much for it, but we want to take it to our development department. And then that's when sometimes it kind of hits you hard a little bit, because everybody and their mother wants to throw in their 2 cents on the movie. And this is what happened right here. Where on The Crisis and Last Catch, I had a little bit more creative freedom, and I was there the whole time. So yeah, that's the story of My Mother's Eyes. So after My Mother's Eyes, I had taken a break from filming. I had taken a break from film altogether. So I had not written in a while. I went off and wrote a couple of books over coaching, because that's what I did. I had left INI Sports. I had gone off to coach soccer for FC Westlake. I had just stuck to sports. I was a program director for Austin Sports Academy for a little while. So that's what I was doing. I wasn't really doing anything film-wise right after My Mother's Eyes. So I think 2 years had gone by, and I met these brothers, Zane and Devin Van Cleef from Abrilio Films, and they had just moved to Austin. And they had done a short film that I watched. I was really impressed by. I thought it was really, really good. I thought it was really artsy, kind of dark a little bit, but I thought very well made. As far as like the visuals and lighting and sound and all that stuff, and the direction of the movie. So I had met these guys and hung out with them for a little bit and really got along with them, and I told them I had written stuff too, and there's a bug in here. I told them that I had written stuff too, and basically they said, oh, well, that's great. Have you had any produced movies? So I think they had seen Crisis, and I think Zane had bought one of my books. He bought The Light That Shines Upon the Players, because at that time I had written 2 books, one over coaching and one over athletics and sports. So one of the brothers, Zane, actually bought the book, and he read it, and he said, man, you're a pretty good writer. I said, thanks, man, I appreciate it. I also think he read a couple of the articles I wrote for the sports column and whatnot. So he said, would you ever consider doing a screenplay for us? I said, sure. I said, I'll come up with some and do one for you guys. So I came up with a movie called The Eyes on Me, which was a thriller. It deals with kind of stalking and not really being a good guy and dating and stuff like that, and what happens if you get obsessed with a woman and where does that go. Because I had with the whole Me Too movement and everything, there was I had a friend who had gone through a few sexual harassment experiences and domestic violence and whatnot, so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. So basically, I'd written a script. It took me about 2 weeks to write it, and gave it to them. And they said, okay, this is really good. And I heard back from them after 3 days saying, okay, we'll do it. And they had notes too, and I met with them, and they were the nicest guys. I mean, really the nicest guys. They even told me, I think it was Devin who told me, who said, we haven't directed anyone else's script, so this will be a nice challenge for us. I said, that's great, man. That's awesome. So this was one of the easiest movies to film, and I had a great time on it. It was very, very different than My Mother's Eyes. The idea was we had a scout location to a house. So I had friends who had houses in Pflugerville, in Round Rock, and I think Hutto. Yeah, Hutto. So we had scout locations at these different houses. And I went to two of my friends who I used to work with out at the ballpark, and I said, and they knew I had written movies and done movies. I said, hey, we need a house. How about I think your house would be perfect. How about we set up a location scout, and I'll bring the filmmakers and producers stuff. And she said, that's great. So we went to the house, and the directors loved it, and the producers loved it, and I loved it, and I thought, yeah, let's film here. Now, the majority of the movie is shot there, with a few scenes out on the street. So, in the development process, in the casting process, I got my first choice, which was great. It was Tara Davis, which, I wanted somebody who was very much the girl next door, and I think she fits that really well. But also, she's beautiful. She can walk into a bar and probably guys will look at her and try to hit on her and pick up her. So I thought she fitted real well. I actually made a list of the 5 actresses who I knew really well and who were doing commercials and stuff who could probably play that part. And she was the top of the list. So I remember sending her the script, and she read the script and she goes, I really, really like the script. And it affected me emotionally and stuff like it, because I think she had some issues with dating and stuff like that. So yeah, she said yes to it. She met with Devin and Zane Van Cleef. They thought they were great, and and then the guy who was the stalker, the antagonist, that was a little hard to find, because there's a scene in there that kind of where it's almost a kind of a domestic violence scene in there, where he kind of pushes her and stuff like that. And there was a lot of actors we went to who didn't want to do that after they read that in the script. So that was a little harder to find. But anyways, we ended up casting Brandon Box for it. He was great. We met, I think it was Devin and I met him at a barbecue joint here in Austin, and we had some delicious barbecue, and we talked him through the script and said, this is why this guy is doing this, and this, that, and the other. And we gave him kind of a background. I had written kind of a background information on his character, and he agreed with it. He was great. I think he had just done a commercial. I think he did a commercial for Office Depot or Office Max or Staples. I think it was an office supply store, and he was telling us about it. And I had kind of known him. He was a coach too, and he's an athletic guy, so I had kind of known him from way back when. Not really realized he was acting, and I found out he was an actor later after seeing his headshot is real and stuff like that. So he was willing to do it. He said yes. I think he was a little nervous but we had talked him through it, and he said yes. And yeah, we went out to the house, got there early morning. It was originally, I think it was an 8-page script. So originally I talked to the Van Cleef brothers and said we could probably do this in 2 days and just do this, and this, and they agreed with me. And the call time, we were out of the house early in the morning. The crew was there. We had blacked out some of the house because we shot during the day and it was supposed to be night, so we had to black out some of the windows. And I know the owners of the house, Marilyn and Ron, Marilyn Silva and Ron Silva had a great time, just kind of because this is the first time they had a film at their house, so I think they were really, really excited about it and really, really looking forward to it. And they were great to kind of listen there, and they talked to the actors, and all the actors were great to them. So the interesting thing was, I think Tara had something to do later that night, and then it fell through. And then I remember midday after filming a lot of stuff in the house, I said, well, why don't we try to get it all done in one day, which is what we did, which is unheard of. So we had a nice little 17-hour day. I mean, we shot well into the night when the sun went down, so it was great. The funny thing was, Devin and Zane came up to me and said, well, we want to put you in the movie, kind of like a crisis deal. And my original draft was I wasn't in the movie. There was a guy who dropped her off, and then she went into the house, but the guy was kind of a douchebag. But the thing is, how I wrote it was you never saw the guy. She just kind of exited the car, and we followed her all the way into the house. And you could tell, and it comes through Tara's performance, that she did a great job. That the date didn't go very well. So they said, well, Matt, why don't you play the douchebag? And I was like, well, I don't know. And they're like, no, why don't you be the guy that plays the douchebag that drops her off, and then you hit on her, and then we see you. And I said, okay, well, that'd be fun. So it was a lot of fun to do that scene. As a matter of fact, Devin and Zane came to me as we were about to shoot the scene, and I was kind of in my, slacks and a button-down shirt and khakis and everything. And Zane came up to me and said, Matt, look, he goes, I know you're a running guy. You like to be exercise and be physically fit. How do you feel if you were smoking inside the car? And I was like, well, I'm not a big smoker, man. I don't smoke like anything, really. I might have a cigar if one night if I'm out hanging out. And I said, but I'm not a smoker. And he goes, no, I know, but I think it will fit your character well. It will add to the douchebag, being a douchebag. And I was like, so finally, after a little bit of talking, I caved in and I said, sure. So, but that was fun. We shot the scene. We did it in about 2 takes. But a funny story is, we shot the scene of me pulling up to the front of the house. And then we shot my side profile, which is where I lean out the window and as she's walking by, and I hit on her. I make a pass at her. And I think the line was, "You're the best, Jenny," which is in the movie. So the main character's name is Jenny. So I remember the first take we did my profile. We shot the part where we roll up. We did the scene where she gets out of the car, Tara gets out of the car. And then we did a shot of me saying, "You're the best, Jenny." Well, on the first take, I had the cigarette in my mouth. I see her walking, and I'm like, "You're the best, Jenny." So I'm coughing a little bit, and it got a huge laugh from the directors and the producers and the crew and everybody who was there who was filming that. So, and then of course the second and third take I did much better. It was much more clearer. So that's my little acting story, my one-line story. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. Very different than My Mother's Eyes. Everybody was great on that movie. We got through it. Once we got to post-production, we had made the poster before we actually started shooting, and it was great. And then we put the poster on IMDb. We made a trailer. The trailer was released on Vimeo. We shared it on social media sites, and people started to see it. We did have a small little focus group screen with me. I think Devin was there, and I think Brandon was there, and the 2 lead actors were there. Brandon and Tara were there, and it was a packed house. And we showed it to a bunch of our friends at AMC Barton Creek Movie Theater. And it was. Everybody came out. They said it was great. They said we think it's really, really good. They said it's dark here and there, but it's pretty good. After that, we had sent it off to film festivals. We won some awards from it, and we actually got reviewed in UK Film magazine, I think, and it was a pretty good review, mixed review. Then we got reviewed again in another critics magazine, and his was very mixed. I think he thought this could have been done better and that could have been done better. And then we I took it to Jenny. I took it back to Jenny. And I had talked to Jenny Hayden in a while. Now, she, of course, was our distributor on Christ's Last Catch. And then she got back to me. She goes, Matt, with everything that's going on, with, we're looking for more lighthearted stuff. That's what she told me. And I said, not a problem. Don't worry about it. So she said, I'm going to have to pass on this one. I said, okay, well, it's not a problem. So, but then we got a distribution deal after winning a few awards from the Independent Short Film Awards and the X Indie Film Awards. And we got a streaming service distribution. So we're not on television, but we're on streaming services. I think on Exurb Film. And it's a paying service, so you just go on, click on the movie. If you're a subscriber and paying, then you can watch the movie. And I think the movie is pretty good. I think it holds up nicely. I think I've had people see it say they really, really like it. I remember I had one woman who came to me who watched it and said, "Yeah, no, that happened to me once, and I think it's very real. I think it's a good story." And she thought it was really good. So it was quite a fun film to make. For it being a thriller. So yeah, that's The Eyes on Me. It was a good movie. So with these four short films, they were all fun. I had a great time writing them. I was lucky enough to have producers and directors interested in them to film them. They're all unique. They're all very different. One was a thriller. One was a chick flick. One was a tearjerker. And then I went back to the thriller genre with The Eyes on Me. The best advice I can say for any aspiring writer is, no matter if it's screenplays or books or anything like that, is you just write, man. You keep doing it. Some people set aside a time, 1 to 4, to do it. Some people just do it on random. Sometimes I'm like that. I remember I had a college professor at Texas Tech who was like, well, you have to write every day. And I was like, yeah, bud, I don't know if I can write every day. Because the reality of it is sometimes writers have what you call writer's block, which is they'll sit in front of a computer or a screen and just, they can't come up with anything. And I've had those days. I've had those days where I've sat in front of a screen and, I can't come up with anything. So I'll take 2 days off. And then I'll have days where I sit in front of a screen and I can write 10 pages. When you're telling a story, make sure you live life. You have to be able to live life. You can't just lock yourself in a room all day. Go out, hang out with your friends, have a great time. Go swimming. Go for a run. Go to a baseball game. The biggest thing about writing is you have to be able to observe people too. Observe what's around you, because that's how you build characters and that's how you really build emotion within the character. So. Just be aware of your surroundings, have a great time, keep moving forward with it, and you'll be successful at it. Now, if something doesn't hit right away with something, the greatest thing is there's always something else. So the best thing to do is just not get frustrated, just keep moving forward. So yeah, I think that's what everybody needs to do about now. So this is Matthew Paris. I'm signing off. You guys keep writing, make those movies. I'm sure they're going to be awesome. Get it out there, because I'm sure people are craving movies right now and good stories, especially in times like these, just to kind of make them laugh, make them have a good time, something they can watch with their family and just have a great time. So I'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye.
Hello and welcome to this UK Film Review filmmaker interview. I am joined by filmmaker Matthew Paris. Matthew, how are you?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Whereabouts in the world are you right now?
I'm living in Austin, Texas.
Oh, fantastic. And how is it down there? Is everything, is it still very post-apocalyptic, or are we a bit more settled now?
People are settled now. It's things are starting to slightly open up. I'm going into grocery stores now, and they're picking up the 6 feet, thing on the floor where you have to stay 6 feet. So they're picking that up. So yeah, things are
slowly but surely going back to normal. How's everything in London? You're in London, right?
Yeah, I'm in London and everything's okay here. Same same as before, really. Just actually, we're quite good at staying away from people, if I'm honest. The whole 6 feet rule was already in place. We didn't know.
Yeah.
The only thing that's been obviously a bit sad has been that the cinemas have been closed, but they are starting to open now. Are the cinemas open where you are?
They are, yes. They've been open for a while. They do take safety protocol though. There's an AMC I go to here in Austin, so they're slowly starting to get back to normal. They've taken up, a lot of stuff, but I think they're still continuing to wear the mask until they hear from corporate. And I think the idea is, I was talking to GM Kelly the other day, and I think the idea is they're not going to allow the customers to wear masks anymore, but the employees still have to wear masks. So slowly but surely things are going back to normal.
Fantastic. It's right to hear. And then in terms of your own filmmaking then over the last year, what have you been up to?
It's been busy. I just got done working on Walker, Texas Ranger. It's a remake of the Chuck Norris series. So I did that here in Austin. It's shooting in Austin. I play in one of the episodes, I play a villain. So that was my first time playing a villain. That was a lot of fun. So that's on the CBS. CBS Studios is doing that. Jared Padalecki is Cordell Walker.
Oh, wow.
And, after that, as far as my own personal projects go, I'm in post-production for a movie called The Place That Bonds Us. And that movie has to deal with today's time. It very much deals with if something is said on social media and your friend gets emotional about it, how do you deal with that? And so it's definitely about that. I don't want to give too much away, but it's about that. So it's going to be fun. We're in post-production on that now.
And you're the writer on that. Were you directing as well? Or was someone else directing that one?
No, a filmmaker buddy of mine from New York who runs, I think he started a production company called Anson Enterprises, Scott Anson. He directed the film. I usually don't direct too much. I like to write it out, and I really like producing. And so we shot here in Austin. We used a friend of mine's house in Hutto, Texas, and we shot that. We shot it over the course of 3 days, and we're just in post-production right now.
Fantastic. And that was during the pandemic, was it? During the lockdowns and things?
It was. We started shooting that in the fall of 2020. So usually around October.
Okay, fantastic. And then previously, before then, you've obviously, as you mentioned yourself, you don't always direct. You're the writer, but often you're not taking the director's chair. So films like The Last Catch, Mother's Eyes, Eyes on Me. I've managed to watch The Eyes on Me. You weren't the director on that one either. Again, it was writing, yeah?
Yes, that is correct.
Where did the story for that come from?
Well, that's for The Eyes on Me, I've had, with the whole Me Too movement and everything, I've had friends who, women friends who've come to me and say, oh yeah, this happened to me and that happened to me. And I never knew about that. So, it's a little shocking at times. And of course you get a little upset, because you want to do something about it to stop all that. But how it really came about was I have a very close friend in Austin. She got harassed by a guy one time. And of course I confronted the guy about it. He got all up in my face and everything and stuff like that. But it kind of came from there. I'm like, I need to write like a story about this. So I went out, I typed it out. It took me about a week. It's a short film, so it took me about a week. And I went to Devin and Zane. Now, I've written a couple of books, and Devin and Zane, who are local filmmakers in Austin, they've done, short films themselves. They've done a few commercials here in Austin. And I pretty much went to them and I said, hey, I got a script. Would you mind seeing it? He goes, yeah, we'll take a look at it. So they looked at it and they got back to me within 3 days and said, all right, we want to direct this. And I said, okay, great. And they said, when are you looking at start shooting? And I said, probably sometime in the fall of that year. It was probably 2016, 2017. Actually, it was like 2017. And we location scouted. We looked at a house, a friend of mine's house, back out in Hutto. And because the whole thing takes place in a house, as you know. And what was interesting about that was in the opening scene, I'm also briefly in the movie. I'm in the opening scene. So
I saw you in the car, right?
yeah. So basically, I wasn't originally going to be in it. How it was written in the first draft was you never saw the guy. You know, we shot from the angle of the yard and the street, and she gets out, and then she enters the house, and then the guy speeds off. You never saw the guy though. The directors, Devin and Zane, came up to me. I think it was Zane. He came up to me. He said, "Hey, we want to put you in there. Why don't you just play the guy?" And at first, I said no. I was like, "No, I don't really want to do that." And he said, "No, we're good. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. We'll get coverage of you and everything." So I gave myself one line, as you saw, which was, "You're the best, Jenny." So I made the guy to be kind of a real douchebag. And of course, I'm smoking. They asked me, they're like, "Matt, I know you work out and run and everything. So, but we want you to kind of, have a smoke, have a cigarette in the car and have a good time with this and everything." So, which segues me to my, the next funny story, which was the first take when I pulled up, I had to roll down the window. And it was, I had to say my line. The only problem is I started coughing right in the middle of saying my line. So we had to do a couple of takes of that. And what was interesting was right before we shot the scene where I pulled up, our main actress, Tara Davis, was like, "Well, I'm allergic to tobacco." So I'm literally, putting down all the windows and everything, trying to blow the smoke out the window and stuff. I'm like, oh.
So it
was a fun project. It was a fun project, Chris.
Oh, fantastic! And obviously, you mentioned that you producing is one of your hats, and you also act. So acting-wise, obviously, that was a fairly limited role. But the stuff on Walker that you're doing now, is acting something that you want to do more of, or is it just something you kind of do as and when it comes along?
It's something I kind of do is when it comes along. There have been times where I've read stuff and, I've had the directors or the other producers say, "Hey, we want to put you in there somewhere." And usually when I do it, it's usually a very small role. I don't play the lead. I really don't want to play the lead. I'm more of a behind the scenes guy. Producing is a lot of fun. I like the pre-production part of it. There's a lot of people who ask me, "Okay, well, what does a producer do?" And basically the short form of it is I just say, well, a producer oversees the entire project. They hire the director, they hire the cast, they hire the crew. They put it all together to make sure they're going to try to get the best product out there as possible. So, and what does that mean? They work on the budget sheet. They work in the office. They set up the location scout. They get film permits to shoot at the location scout. They hired a security team to block off the street if you guys are doing an outside team, just stuff like that. Now, if you're really low budget and you make an independent movie, you may not have all that. So you need to focus really on the permits. I think focus on the permits and focus on the locations and just let the community and neighborhood know what you're doing. And that's about it, and most people are pretty cool. Small towns, shooting in small towns it's much easier than shooting in a city, a big city. It's there's a lot more you can control in a small town, and usually the community in small towns love that stuff. So
they will come out, get ready to get a part, don't they? They're ready to. So if you need someone, I'll jump in.
Exactly. Yeah. So we did that with the place at Bonza's, Chris. It was like we had a flashback scene where we have a bunch of kids playing football. So our executive producer who lived in that community, we shot like around a park around her community. And she set out on the community board how many, hey, we have this scene coming up. We need people, we need kids to, where it's kind of a hangout scene. And the response was overwhelming. Like I was hoping maybe like 2 or 3 people respond. Everybody was like, "Oh, no, we want to do that." So it was fun. It was a good time.
So I hear that question a lot about producers, what is it that they do? And one of the things that people who do it talk about is the fact that they're with the project a lot longer. As you said, you get to do pre-production, you're there during the shoot, and then you're also afterwards, you're there. So especially if you're writing the piece, then maybe you want to have a bit more involvement with those aspects. And then also, once the film's done, you're talking about releasing as well. And getting the film out there. What can you tell us about your strategy when it comes to sort of releasing films?
So I've sold 2 short films. for international distribution. They're playing on DirecTV and AT&T Uverse. That was Crisis and The Last Catch. And we also sold The Eyes on Me for online streaming. So basically, my strategy is this, and I've had many arguments with other producers about this because they have their strategies too, and I understand that. But usually, what I like to do, well, first, me coming from the world of sports, you know, you kind of think in strategy. I grew up an athlete. I played sports all my life, so you're already kind of thinking of strategy. But when it comes to a movie, no matter if it's a short or a feature, usually what I like to do is I like to go to producers, and I'll tell the cast about this too. I said, okay, here's the plan. I'm going to send it to this festival, this festival, this festival, and then I'll start looking for distribution companies. Sometimes producers, after a movie is done, will say, okay, now let's send it to distribution companies. I don't really like to do that, Chris. My strategy is no, let's send it to a few smaller festivals. Hopefully we'll get an award. And then once we get about two film awards, we'll be in the driver's seat to then send it to distribution companies. Now, I know every filmmaker in the world, not just in Los Angeles, and I'm sure not just in London, but in the world, likes to take their movies to Sundance or Cannes Film Festival. And it makes sense. Those are the two biggest film festivals in the world. So in part, it's probably a dream for them, which is fine. But you have to understand those are the two biggest film festivals in the world. So every filmmaker wants to go there. So why not maximize your chances to send it to a few smaller festivals, hopefully get an award, and then send it off to distribution companies. Now, in the case of Crisis and The Last Catch, or most likely Crisis. Crisis was a movie. It was my first short film. My plan was we sent it off to World Fest Houston. We got an award there. We sent it off to another film festival, and we got an award there. We got an award, I think, at the California Film Festivals in San Diego. And I said, okay, now we're in the driver's seat to really send this out to a distribution company. I sent it to a distribution company actually in Germany, and they got back to me and said, you know, thank you very much, but it's not for us. I said, okay. I sent it to Shorts International in Los Angeles, and they have a major headquarters in London too, which is great. I think a gentleman named Carter Smith, I think, runs it. So so I sent it off to them. Like a month went by, Chris, and I didn't hear anything. So I kind of thought, all right, you know, that deal's done. And then lo and behold, I spoke too early. I got a email 2 days later from one of the executives over there who said, I saw your movie. I really enjoyed it. We would like to buy it, and here's the contract. And now that goes through a whole you know, jumping hoops and a roller coaster ride in itself, because, you know, you have to have lawyers look at it. You have to make sure everything's okay before you actually sign anything. And then, of course, they need the file for the movie, so I sent it to them and the trailer and everything like that. But it was great. It was great. And they said, you know, we're going to play it in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and the United States. And we're going to play it on DirecTV and AT&T Uverse on the Shorts HD network.
And do you get like any kind of feedback from them in terms of once the film's over there and they're showing it? Do they keep you updated in terms of who's watching it and how many views it's got, or not really?
Not really. No. I mean, we have to find that out ourselves. Like, you know, we'll go online and they have the TV, you know, what's playing and what's not playing. We'll see it and stuff like that. Crisis actually premiered in the middle of the night. It premiered like at midnight at 3:15. I thought, okay, that's great. Everybody's going to be asleep. But I understand why they did that, Chris. It's a little bit of a darker movie. So they marketed how the darker thriller films usually play late at night. And then the more family-oriented films usually play like around 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock time slot.
Yeah.
That's what they told us.
Yeah. Someone's awake though, you know, at that time. Someone's always awake watching films.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be worried too much about that.
Come back from the bars, Chris. They're going to watch it.
So obviously you've already mentioned festivals then. When you're looking to submit a film to a festival, what's the kind of criteria that you have for whether or not it's worth your submission?
Well, sometimes you have to go off your gut instinct. So if the reason I've never, well, basically what I like to do is in post production, once the movie is finished, once the music, once the sound mixing is done, once everything is done, I usually like to screen the movie and watch it by myself. I don't want anybody around me. I don't want the cast or anything like that around me, because here's why. If you screen the movie and you watch it for the first time with other people around, usually people like to pass judgment. Oh, we should have held on this shot a little longer, or we should have cut that out, or we should have trimmed that and stuff like that. So usually I watch it by myself, and then after I'm done watching it, I'll figure, okay, here's what we got. Here's what I think we have. Here's the festivals I think it could work best at. I've never had one where I said, I need to send this to Sundance or Cannes. I just felt like, nah, because they're looking for something that really, blows people's minds, and they're probably looking for a name in the movie, because those festivals got so big now.
Mhm.
So usually what I like to do is to send out to smaller festivals like World Fest Houston and stuff like that. But usually I'll watch the movie by myself and be like, okay, here's what I think we have. And then we'll just, we'll schedule a focus group screening at one of the theaters, at one of my buddies' theaters, or we'll schedule a screening for the cast and crew and just kind of hear their opinion. And that's when the opinions start flowing, and you'll hear everything. You'll hear from we'll love it to, oh, I think it was okay, which is fine too. It's their opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously we're UK Film Review, so we review a lot of these films, and partly what we hear from filmmakers is they come to us because they don't want the feedback from those around them, especially people that are involved in the film, because they're too close to it. They're too close to the information. They can't give obviously an unbiased review. And then also friends and family, it's the same. That they're not really going to properly lay into it unless they've got a problem. Not that that's what we do. We don't come and try and rip it apart, but actually getting that kind of neutral third party opinion often then helps them to sort of say, oh, okay, yeah, we got this right, or maybe that didn't work for some people, or that's okay. Do you seek out reviews? Do you get reviews for your films?
I do. Yeah. I just, I love the critics' opinions, even when they're bad. Critics are there for a reason. So, and sometimes I do like hearing opinions where maybe they saw something that I didn't see. Or sometimes it's fun to really hear people's opinions about, oh, well, here's what I think the movie is, and stuff like that, which I like. I enjoy. I mean, it could be something totally surprising where, like, I wrote the thing and I never saw it like that. But
it's 100%. We see this all the time, even amongst my writers. I'll see two very experienced film critics can watch the same film and get very different things from it, because as much as what you intended is there, but what they bring with it, their baggage and their own emotions, that it plays out. And that's why it's art, I guess, because people interpret it in all these different ways. And yeah, I think it's fantastic. And obviously you've got an absolute sort of list of films that are out and about. I know that The Eyes on Me was on Vimeo, but can the other films, are they still available on those platforms that you mentioned? Or where else can people see your films?
So, Eyes on Me is on Vimeo. The Crisis and The Last Catch was on the Shorts HD network. It was a 3-year deal, a 3-year contract. They'll say, we'll pay you this much to, show the movie. It was a flat rate. A lot of times I get questions do you get royalties every time it airs? No, I don't. It was a flat rate. I wish I got royalties. I get royalties from the books, all right. But yeah, so it was a 3-year deal, and once the 3 years is up, the rights revert back to me. Now, sometimes with distribution companies, some filmmakers think, oh, I'm just going to sell it. It's going to play forever. That's not usually the case. Some distribution companies have 5-year deals, and they'll say, okay, we're going to show it on airlines. We're going to show it on, pay-per-view. And yeah, so I mean, but you gotta understand what you have. Sometimes when if you have a darker movie, you're gonna want to go to a distribution company that shows a thriller or a horror movie or dark films. I seriously doubt they're gonna show a thriller on an airline with kids and parents and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're gonna want probably something more family friendly. That's why you see a lot of short films become comedies. They do a lot of comedy short films in film schools. You know, people who are just trying to make movies, they'll do short comedies. And usually when you graduate to a feature, sometimes that'll be like a drama or a darker movie. But yeah, so distribution companies, it varies. Sometimes it's a 3-year deal, which is what ours were. Sometimes it's a 5-year deal. Sometimes I've seen companies they need short films in Japan. They'll do a 7-year deal, and they'll say, okay, we're going to play it overseas. We're going to do it here. Our deal was we just play it on television, and with no airline play or pay-per-view or anything like that. So.
And obviously, there's different deals for territories and exclusivity. Is that so? Have you, when you've accepted the fee, often is it that it's more attractive because they've got more rights? I'm assuming because they have more control over what they can and can't do with it. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. That's absolutely right, Chris. Yeah.
So yeah, obviously the other options are out there, aren't there? So you can get non-exclusive deals, and you can feel free to sell your film elsewhere, but often it's going to then limit what you get paid and as you say, the control. So obviously it's really fascinating, Matthew. Obviously I love talking about this stuff. Hopefully the sort of listeners and the viewers have found it useful. What's next for you? What have you got your sights set on next?
Well, right now, we're in post-production for The Place That Bonds Us. And of course, I got my list of film festivals I'm going to send to that. And, of course, distribution companies I'm going to send to that. Jenny Hayden, who was who spearheaded Crisis in The Last Catch, I already talked to her. She broke away from Shorts International now. So she went off and she's doing her own thing. And she told me, she goes, well, I really don't do short films anymore. But if you have a television series, I'll be happy to look at that. But, so right now we're in post on The Place That Bonds Us. We're working on cutting the trailer. We're working on the poster. And then after that, I'm writing a script for a miniseries, a 4-episode miniseries, 30 minutes. It's called Honor Among Friends. And it's about a group of friends who grew up together, and they go back to their small town they grew up in, and they haven't seen each other in years. They've all, they went to college. Some of them went to college, got degrees, entered the workforce, some of them got married. So they all come back together and they all grew up best friends. What happens is they come back together for a certain reason, which I don't want to say what it is, but it's kind of one of the friends has a problem, like a real serious problem. So they really tried to save him and stuff like that. So it's a 4-episode miniseries. So I'm writing that right now. I'm almost done with the pilot. I have a few actors committed to it. I have a director committed to it. They asked me, when are we going to start shooting this? I said probably in the fall. So I just need to finish the pilot script.
just that bit, yeah. So,
yeah.
Well, Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you on this interview. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chris. I had so much fun talking to you.
My pleasure. This has been a UK Film Review production. We'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.